Hey guys, welcome to the Home Recorded Music Podcast. I am here today with Trent Jansz. How you doing, my friend?
I'm well, thank you.
Why music?
So my dad he still plays guitar and sings. He's more of a singer than a guitar player. He kind of did the whole pubs and, playing around Melbourne thing back in the 60s and 70s and 80s. One year when I was about 7 years old, I wanted like a bike for Christmas or something like that. And I ended up getting a guitar for Christmas and I hated it. I was like, what is this thing? I don't want this. This is not the coolest toy. I wasn't happy. And then I remember one time I got sent to my room for something I did bad and this guitar was in the corner. And I think I figured out like some little theme, like the little James Bond down, 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 down. And then I was like, oh, that actually sounds half decent. Once I got into high school, there was the option to learn an instrument or do like, woodwork or drama or something, one of these elective subjects. And I already had this guitar that I'd kind of noodled on. So I figured, yeah, it makes sense to try and have these lessons on guitar. You had to do like classical guitar lessons with the flamenco, footstool. Back then I thought it was really quite nerdy and I wasn't really keen on it. The incentive was if you did classical guitar for a number of years in year 7 and year 8, then you're eligible to get electric guitar lessons in year 9. So I had other friends at school who were playing music and you just kind of make a little community, and that kind of set me off. Did it all through high school and then went to university. And
classical music would have been a great influence to give you technique and stuff like that, yeah?
I wish I had known that back then, unfortunately. But I mean, I was very lucky to have some great teachers back then.
Sure.
So like looking back, I mean, yeah, you're right. It did help with the technique and, using your fingers and obviously the two hands working together and music theory. But I kind of wish I had dived more into it and committed more into it back then as a young year 7, year 8 student.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think any little influence that you get here and there just creates your own style or your own, purpose of what you want to get out of music in the first place. So I think it's,
Yep.
I did music when I was 7 and I used to just learn these terrible little things, finger picking things and stuff. And I hated it at the time. But then I look back and I think, well, it has influenced the way that I play now, so that there's no regrets.
You can't. Well, that's it. Going on that, like, I mean, you always meet people when you're playing out and doing gigs, and mainly like people who have gone on to do a different course in their life, whether they're lawyers or dentists or whatever, and they're like, oh, I wish I'd stuck with music. I wish I'd kept playing the drums or trumpet or guitar. You and I did keep with music, and that's something that you can always keep close to yourself, that you actually stuck with it instead of doing something else and regretting it later.
100%. It's a tough thing to stick with, I tell you that much, because
you do definitely make sacrifices. Yeah, you're right.
100%. But have you always been doing solo stuff, or were you in a band at an early age?
More or less. Most of my, I guess, meat and potatoes and income comes from playing covers gigs and that. And so basically after high school, studied in uni, like I mentioned before. And when I did like a 2-year TAFE course straight after high school. And then I did 1 year at the VCA doing like the jazz improvisation course. Now I was about 20 years old then. In that year, I got offered like this overseas contract kind of thing and at the time I was like, yeah, this is definitely not real. Like I'm sure this is like just someone's pulling my leg. But basically the idea was that you would go fly somewhere and you'd play in like a bar 6 nights a week in like a westernized hotel somewhere in the Middle East or in Asia or wherever you get sent by this agency, and you play 6 nights a week covers, like all the hits that you would play at your local whatever bar or club in Melbourne, for example. So I was like, yeah, okay, look, on paper that sounds amazing because I'm 20 and I'd love to travel and play music and get paid to do it. So I went and auditioned and still thinking this is not real. Like surely this is just bullshit. And then like I managed to get the part, but there was still no gig. So I was rehearsing for these supposed gigs and these contracts, but nothing was locked in. I wasn't going anywhere. Like we were just rehearsing for something that I didn't even know was going to happen. I ended up failing my first year at VCA because I was rehearsing with this group trying to get this contract. Just before the second year was about to start, I got an email or a phone call saying that we're going, pack your bags, we're leaving in a month to go to Bahrain, which is a little island in the Middle East. But at this point in my life, I'd never even been on an overseas trip before. And I didn't really know. I mean, we'd been rehearsing with this band, me and another guy who I was, had played music with before. But to be honest, I didn't really know the other members that well until we actually went and did it. Long story short, I ended up doing it for about 5 years, playing 6 nights a week around the hotel circuit in Dubai and Bahrain and Oman, all these Gulf countries around there. Like that kind of set me up from where I am now. So I met my wife over there. She's from England originally. And then we moved back to Australia in about 2014. So I moved in 2010, moved back in 2014 and kind of slipped back into doing covers and stuff in Melbourne. Mainly a guitar player, like, you know, studied music as a guitar player, but I guess the natural progression was to sing as well. And so I was doing a lot of solo covers and weddings and bars and playing with, you know, duos and bands and all, just whoever hired me for playing covers. And it wasn't until like the lockdown last year that I've actually, you know, we've got all this time. Obviously there's no covers gigs. So I really should just start putting my energy into the originals thing. Because why did I start playing guitar and doing music for? It was to play your own songs. I guess that's the dream, you know, you know, to promote your own music and do that. So yeah, I guess I've kind of shifted my energy to that since the lockdown.
The 5-year journey that you had of doing the traveling, what an experience that must have been for you.
Looking back on it now, I'm super lucky, I guess, and I met some amazing people along the way, and you know, and just the experience of traveling and living on my own and kind of figuring all that stuff out and seeing life as a young 21-year-old, as well as obviously honing in on practicing and playing. It's not many people get that opportunity, so I super privileged, I guess, to be able to do that for a while.
In terms of, you know, being able to make a career out of it, you either have a success in your own original music, like winning the lottery, essentially. Then the other option is to do covers. I applaud anybody that's able to be in a cover band, because I think it's a different machine. It's
a different ball game, yeah. Yeah, like, I mean, I feel like the covers thing, if you're going to do it as a career, obviously, you know, there's a difference between people who just do 1 or 2 gigs every now and then to just kind of keep their, you know, play and stuff. But if you're going to choose it as an income and as a livelihood, then yeah, it's more of a business kind of mindset rather than like a creative mindset, because, you know, you do some of these covers gigs that are a bit more of a slog and you're like, what a drag. But at the end of the day, like, you got to do it. If you want to put food on the table and money in your bank account, you got to take the good with the bad. You know, people who are tradespeople, you know, they have to do the real hard laboring and kind of slogs. But then when they want, or when they can with their time, they can work on their own kind of trade projects and build something really cool for themselves.
It's funny because in a trade, they always say that, you know, like, for instance, my father's a carpenter, and he always talked about how you know, a carpenter's house is never built.
And you know what? I think like as tough and as financially devastating and all that, you know, all the issues that have come with this lockdown, I guess one real positive thing is I've been able to look a bit inwards and decide, okay, well, I've been doing the covers thing for 15 odd years. Why? Like, kind of assessing it all. And, you know, thinking, okay, you can do, you know, let's just say 200 gigs a year, for example. Would I be less happy if I only did 130 gigs a year and had a bit more time to myself and put a bit more energy into solo and original projects and stuff? I've really felt that I should be putting more energy into my original stuff, because it's kind of the stuff that makes me happy and leaves my mark on the musical world, and yeah, kind of gets my juices flowing in a way as well, which I'm sure you can relate to.
Is there any tips that you have for people that are getting into the industry, that want to get into doing covers and find that avenue for revenue?
Good question. And like, there's as the saying goes, there's, you know, many ways to skin a cat. That's a kind of a weird analogy, but the idea is that there's no one way. I mean, you could say from a musical point of view, learn as many songs as you can, whether you're a soloist playing, you know, in a pub on your own, and that's what you want to do, just one-man band kind of shows, or whether you want to be a hired gun where you play guitar for different singers and musicians and whoever, and all styles and genres. I'd say just learn repertoire. That's kind of the main thing at the end of the day. Be the guy that knows all the songs and it's easy, and yep, I got it, cool, I'm ready to go. I'd suggest for people who have got, they feel like they've got a lot of repertoire, they're not assholes, obviously, you know, go out and introduce yourself to people who are doing it, and be known, be seen, and introduce yourself to people who are doing it already.
That's interesting. because I'm not familiar with that world. I've always done
Right.
original music throughout my whole life. But I've
Sure.
also, my income came from, doing carpentry and doing odd jobs. When it comes to doing like a cover band, is there such things as like, for instance, are you giving them a list like here's the songs that I play?
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. If you're working with agencies, and I mean, just, there's so many different ways to get a covers gig nowadays. There's obviously just word of mouth, or people approach different bars and pubs directly. But more or less, I guess a lot of my work comes from agencies, as well as just other people who are singers who have gotten the gig more or less from an agent as well. So yeah, having like a high end promo video is super important. Like, I mean, if I was to record just off my phone here now, it doesn't really look as professional, and it does cost a bit of money though to get all that happening, but I guess you make it back, and it's an investment. Depending on what the client is, I can always just say, look, I can tailor my set list to, say, a pub rock crowd, or a easy listening crowd, or a jazz crowd, or whatever.
Try to think about how you do it, whether it's like a resume where you have a list of your songs, but like you said there, in order to sort of be versatile and to be able to get more gigs, you want to have the ability to be able to say, hey, I can cater for this particular crowd.
Yeah. On the day, someone might be like, hey, do you know this song? And I might say, yeah, I've heard it before. Let me have a quick play. Oh yeah, that's cool. Add that to the list. Bang. As a soloist, just to kind of, you get your iPad with your lyrics and away you go. It's easy to add songs on the fly sometimes.
Doing the cover stuff, have you actually found that, like, over the years, that's helped you as a songwriter? You'd be learning so many different song structures and getting the influence from other artists. Surely it gives you this chance to be really adaptable.
100%, mate. Yeah, because like sometimes, especially, last minute gigs, you don't have the luxury to look up chord charts or whatever. Subconsciously just gets put into you. You hear different chord progressions and different riffs and different tones, and if you're producing your own music, different sounds, and I guess that all kind of combines itself and comes out when you write your own original music, because everything you hear, and then when I write my own blues music, those kind of pop or covers songs can kind of creep in as well, like those chord progressions and stuff, and and the ear. I mean, it all kind of goes into each other, I guess.
100%. Example for myself, I just remember growing up, and I'd learned tablature books of my favorite artists. I can certainly say that, by learning certain ways that they played guitar and learning all their chords, that has influenced and brought it into teaching me how to essentially play guitar, over time. It's the more variety that you have, I think it really does build your originality when you go to make your own music.
I had like this little kind of, I guess, call it a game or something stupid, where I was like, all right, I want to write a 5-song kind of fusion guitar album. And I don't really play that style of guitar, like that shreddy, Steve Vai, Joe Satriani. Like I'm a hack when it comes to that, in my opinion. My kind of vibe was, I'm going to get in this mindset. I'm going to listen to a lot of Joe Satriani and those kind of players, and really try and just kind of write that style of music. I would never play it live because I would totally butcher it live, I reckon. But I did it last year. I released like a 5-song EP. Going back on your point, like, yeah, definitely, like, it does come into your playing, I feel like, if you wanted to. But then you can also like just divert it into other streams as well, and not want to. Keep it really just simple and meat and potatoes, and and that's kind of the hope. I trying to be conscious of that with my Silverback project, is to keep it really rocky and balls to the wall. The energy is more important to me than, like, say, the musical kind of theoriness of it. Last year during the lockdown, I was working on 2 projects. I had the Silverback, which is the blues thing that I'm sure we'll get into, and then there was that other guitar shreddy thing, fusion type vibes. So I released that at the start of this year, I think it was. And so that's called Legacy.
Do you remember what programs you were using at the time and what the process was?
The program, which is just open on my laptop, is Logic. The idea for the acoustic stuff was super simple: 1 mic and also a line in, so 2 channels, and really just to try to see how good I could get it to sound. So I had just like a Rode NT2A mic, and just close mic'd it up to the acoustic, and just blend the 2 sounds of the the mic and the guitar and the pickup, and just see how I could get it to sound. Going back now, I probably would have changed a few things. I actually had a good friend of mine, Jake Roxas, play electric drums on it, And so I played all the other instruments and he played the drums. And so I sent him all the kind of demo tracks that had just like Logic drums on it. And then he played over it. Then I pretty much just overdubbed or just re-recorded all my parts again.
With Legacy, you're saying you recorded the tracks, you did sort of like a template of the drums, and then you've sent that to a drummer, and he's laid down the real drums.
Some of these demos I'd written and recorded years ago, like I'm talking about like 2013. With this style, it was really like I wrote guitar solos, like I wrote all the parts, like it wasn't really much improvisation. So relearning all these solos that I'd done was like such a goodness me, like it took so long. The challenge was to try to emulate what I'd done prior and re-record it with like my, better plugins and better effects and stuff that I had now.
I've tried to keep my songs simplistic for the simple fact of when I'm doing them live, I've found that a lot of the songs that I recorded that I'd written on the day into the computer and sort of written, frame by frame, those things are a lot harder to replicate live, because in that process, it's almost essentially like you're doing a cover song of the song you've written, if that makes sense.
Pretty much.
You've gone and written it, and then you're like, okay, well now I kind of have to cover this.
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to do it any other way, because that's the way it is. Yeah, because sometimes I've recorded 2 or 3 solos. Yep, that part's good. Yep, that part's good. I'll get rid of that part and I'll finish with that part. And then if that kind of sounds a bit weird because of the editing, I'll just learn that and then redo and then kind of do that. So it's kind of a blend of improv / not improv.
Sure. Yeah. Which is definitely something that's been afforded to our generation, as opposed to, back in the day, they couldn't do that. You couldn't sit there and see it on the screen and go, okay, I'm about to drop in now. Or, it's it is actually a really good writing tool in that regards. People that worked in the 60s and 70s and stuff. I was just talking to a bloke the other day. They worked with tape, and they were talking about how artists back then would have to come in fully ready. When they come in the studio, they had to know exactly what they were about to do before they started recording, because it's time is money, and you're working on a tape. You can't go back and re-record over top of it.
Yeah, I feel like our generation of people who are writing their own and producing their own music at home, it's amazing because we have all the time in the world now, and we don't have to worry about money and all that. But it's kind of made us a lot lazier as well. So you look at like the singers in the old days, and your favorite singers and guitar players, they can smash out a song in a second. But we get so lazy. Most people probably couldn't do a take without making a mistake or having to use auto tune or to drop back in again and redo the guitar part because you fucked it or whatever. It's good because we've got this amazing technology at our fingertips now. You got to be careful not to just rely on it, I guess is the word
100%,
I'm thinking of, maybe.
100%.
Yeah.
You've got the 2 EPs out. You've got one of them's an acoustic one. One of them, what did you say? The other one's like a blues one.
So with that Legacy one, I went a bit more kind of nuts on the production with like, synths and kind of like different kind of arrangements and stuff. So that's all under my name, Trent Jansz. Project that I'm kind of more focusing on is called Silverback. It's all me, my songs that I've written. But the idea is to have it as a band, and I've recorded with some great a bass player called Liam Brown and a couple of drummers, Marcus Ryan and Carlo Parisi. Been like a project I've been working on for a long time, and hope to get out there and play more shows with it.
And where can people find that?
You can go any streaming service or CD Baby. I've got lyric videos for the 2 singles.
For anyone listening, I am going to leave all the links to these down in the descriptions. I got one more question for you. What is your legacy?
I want to leave my own music behind because in the years when we were all kind of old and grey and looking back on our life, it's like no one's going to remember how many covers gigs you did, or no one's going to care that I played 300 weddings in 1 year or whatever it was, or who cares really? I want to look back and say, this is me, this is my music, this is my personality in a song or a solo or whatever. Having your own music is like the best thing you can have to document, I guess, on a big scale, document your life in music. I guess that's it. Yeah, just to have songs of mine, and you've done the same as well. Your original music is great too, to leave some sort of mark on the world in music.
Thank you so much for joining me today. Keep rocking, keep rolling, rah.